Bruce, you must have something really good too.
Of course I do. It's Bruce Danielson, and I guess I'm here to entertain you too.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the informational meeting of Tuesday, April 6, 2021. Welcome to those watching online, on television, and quite the crowd here in person. Glad to have you. We are going to start with the roll call of the City Council.
Council members Brecky.
Here.
Erickson. Jensen.
Here.
Kiley.
Here.
Neitzert.
Here.
Selberg. Sale.
Here.
Starr. Here.
Okay, we have 7 here. Councillor Erickson, I know, may get here late. She has something else to attend to. And Councillors Brecky and Sale are on the phone. First up is committee and commission reports. CCOG, Southeastern Council of Governments. Councillor Starr?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. We were fortunate here about a month or so ago to have Director Lynn Keller-Forbes address us and really went through a lot of the 2020 activities of Southeastern Council of Government, or CCOG as we refer to it as. But the last meeting was the first meeting of 2021, so it was kind of a wrap-up of the 2020 year-end and accomplishments and goals that were achieved that we kind of went through in her presentation. But we did elect a chair to continue on is Kevin Smith, and Senator Jack Colbeck is our legislative member for the CCOG Executive Board. You know, really one of the things that stood out both from Director Keller-Forbes' presentation to us and at the meeting the last time was the role the planning districts took in helping local units of government find uses for their CARE Act, the first round. And so CCOG did a great job of providing that consultation to all of the cities within the planning district, as well as the other planning districts across the state. Also, the placement of affordable housing, the number of loans that they accomplished, it was just in a bad year. CCOG was really successful in helping us work our way through that. So that's the end of my brief report.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay. Next up, Audit Committee. Councillor Kiley.
Thank you very much. The Audit Committee met Monday, March 29th to receive the annual external audit report from Eide Bailey. Overall, the report was favorable in that it resulted in an unmodified opinion with some restatements and one finding due to the restatements. The restatements removed privately maintained infrastructure assets, which were slightly over $2 million under governmental activities relating to storm drainage, and approximately 17 million or a little over 17 million from the water fund business type activities. The federal audit resulted in an unmodified opinion with no material weakness or significant deficiency internal control findings, and no material witness or significant deficiency compliance findings. The management letter included 4 past adjustments. And then the second item, heard that same afternoon, the committee also received the external audit for the public parking enterprise risk assessment. I'm not going to go into that in great detail here this afternoon because the council will hear a full report from the auditors on April 20th at an informational meeting. But I will say it is a thorough report that showed favorable projections under 3 different scenarios. That's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councillor Kiley. Our next report, Tutt Hill House Resource Group. Councillor Brecky, do you have that report? Councillor Brecky, are you there? Is there a report?
Oh, I am here. I was talking to myself over here.
Easy to do.
Forgot to take it off mute.
Yep. Go ahead.
Yes, I am here, and I would just give a brief report. The committee continues to move forward. The design committee, the main issues that were being discussed were getting the structural engineers out there. The good news is that our little house is on a very sturdy foundation. when they did the remodel that allowed it to be open to the public, after they stopped using it for a caretaker's home, they did really some marvelous reinforcements in the basement areas. So there's not going to be any problem in opening up the second floor. There will not need to be additional reinforcements to open it up for the public. So that was really good news. There's still a little sticking point is the staircase and what kind of moderation and requirements are going to be necessary in order to open that up to the second floor. And so they're working through those. I mean, I'm sure, I have no doubts that they'll figure out what needs to be done. We're working with the health inspection on that. And then the fundraisers are, again, busy having meetings with donors now, but I think they're energized in that a lot of snowbirds, I think, who are potential candidates for larger donations will be coming back and are coming back as we speak. And so they're looking forward to the next couple of months connecting with some of those folks. And then as far as the drafting agreement, the legal documents, those are coming together nicely. And it's just, we're just moving forward, and everybody's just continuing to stay enthusiastic and trying to achieve those fundraising goals so that we can get the entire project done if possible. Also, the Parks Department, is looking at, through their budget and through their contracts, being able to get a large share of the plantings that will be needed to enhance the garden area up there.
Okay, thank you very much. Great report. That brings us to council remarks. Anyone with council remarks today? Hearing none, we're going to move on to our one presentation today, which is the Veterans Community Project presentation, presented by the Veterans Community Project. Looks like Director Jeff Eckhoff is going to start us off. Welcome.
Welcome. Good afternoon. Jeff Eckhoff, Planning and Development Services. Many of you heard me talk to you in the last few months about this project, and we're really excited to be at this point, and you'll kind of hear about the journey to get here today, as well as about the project. It's something that's been worked on for the last couple of years. It was interrupted by COVID and a change of staff down on their side, and so it's fun to finally get here today. This is actually a product of the city's Onward Leadership Program, which is a partnership with the Beacom School of Business down at USD. And this was the first Onward class. And the members of that team, Ryan Sage from the City Attorney's Office, Shannon Verhey from Public Works Engineering, Lieutenant John Toom from PD, Jason Bieber from Planning and Development, of course you own Jim David from your staff, comprised the team that they started looking into different concepts for their project. Tiny homes were a lot of the discussion at that particular time, and so they started looking at tiny homes. They Googled tiny homes and came up with this Veterans Community Project, and quickly switched their focus to that, and decided to start doing a feasibility study to see if that would be suitable for Sioux Falls. Looking at what the need is, looking at locations, looking at what our role would be, and whether the program could sustain itself long term. You can call this luck or fate or serendipity or whatever you want, but one of the co-founders of the project actually was invited to speak at the Housing Summit that year in May, and they connected while they were here and started and quickly accelerated the process into, we think we can do this here, let's take it the next step and really see what we have here. It led to a site visit by the team to go down to Kansas City in July of that year to check out the program, spent a couple days touring. They came back, they were incredibly excited about it. One of the co-founders then came to Sioux Falls in August, late August of that year, and people were excited about getting it going. An exciting interruption, that co-founder left the organization, COVID hit the next year, and all of a sudden communication kind of stalled, and then we had a kind of restart with other folks. We kind of restarted that process in April, and then in November, finally, they were able to come up for their first visit. This current team that you'll meet today, they met with local leadership, they met with some of the fundraising people, they met with Volunteers of America, went out, toured, and met the folks at the Alliance, Bishop Dudley House, Baraka House and some of the other facilities and services in town, because they were doing their due diligence too, to see what services were available and what the need here might be. They came back in March, just last month. So again, with this leadership, we met with representatives from the Military Veterans Affairs Committee of the Chamber, as well as they held a neighborhood meeting. They had 2 people show up for the meeting. Both were fine with after they learned about the project. And we'll tell you, to date, we've not received any negative phone calls, emails, or letters. Actually, the correspondence we received has been in support and offering help for the project. Just to orientate you, the site is about a just under 2-acre site. It is just north of the existing Axtell Park track, bordered on the west by Western Avenue, on the east by West, and of course that diagonal, that's Burnside. Just to the northwest of this site is the Baraka House. So just to give you some orientation, those services are already somewhat in the neighborhood. It makes a nice partnership, and then, but did want to show you where the location was. The city provided the funding through our housing funds, general funds, to purchase the land. We were able to purchase the land at below appraised value, so we were pleased with that. There's an existing water and sewer line that the city will be upgrading as part of that. And then the street and the construction, all those costs will be on the VCP project to complete that and bring it to fruition. So with that, I'll be here, of course, for questions, as the rest of the team will be afterwards, but I'd like to introduce Vincent Morales, who is the co-founder of the Veterans Community Project. And then I think we'll also hear from Ben Hendershot, who is the VP for National Construction. I will let them take it from here.
Welcome, glad to have you.
Thank you, Jeff, for the introduction. Thank you for welcoming us to your city. I'd like to start off by saying just what an amazing team that you guys have here. What an amazing city that you guys have in opening up and welcoming Veterans Community Project and what we have, how we are servicing veterans. So about 5 years ago, a group of combat veterans, myself being one of them, came together and we started to see gaps and flaws in the existing systems. And it wasn't because the systems were not meant for success. The veterans did not know how to navigate them. So in the model and what we did in the military, veterans taking care of veterans, we came together and put our collective minds together and came up with the solution of tiny homes. Transitional housing for homeless veterans or at risk of being homeless veterans. We did that by taking case management to a different level versus your traditional case management. We do not have one-size-fits-all program. In Kansas City, we have 49 tiny homes, so we have 49 individualized programs. Now, there is a baseline for entry into our program, but when it comes to each veteran's needs, that is different. A Vietnam era veteran has different needs than a Gulf War veteran, than a OIF, OEF, OND veteran. Each era of veteran has different needs and different issues that they tackle. Second thing we did was we decided not to compete, but to complement services. So what services are already being provided in the community by the VA, by community partners? We made those relationships and created warm handoffs where it was, if it's not a service that we can provide in-house, we know an agency that can, and we have an amazing relationship with that agency. Just as you guys have created here with your alliance, that's an amazing accomplishment for the veteran community here in Sioux Falls. And the third portion really is meaningful ways for the community to connect with veterans and veterans to connect with the community. So when we come to the actual building process and the tiny homes, we create volunteer opportunities for the community to get sweat equity into the tiny homes project. So the community can come out and volunteer and say, I helped paint that house. They're vested into the veterans in our program just as much as the veterans are vested into the program. So part of the tiny homes process, the way we stuck to this model is actual therapy. So if you're looking at your screen right now, this is what the inside of a tiny home looks like. So for all of our veterans that are listening and or watching, one thing you're gonna notice is this is the view from the bed. You see every point of entry. You see the front door, you see the window, 2 windows to the side, and immediately to that veteran's left is the restroom. So every point of entry is covered. That is huge when it helps with veterans with severe post-traumatic stress. So even the design of the house is designed for living therapy. No house faces another house, so I do not have direct view, so our veterans still have privacy. That has been huge with helping with our veterans with severe PTS. Our program is built around 5 support models. Network of support, that is connecting the veteran to the community, who they're with. Education and training. What type of education does our veteran have? They still have educational benefits left through the VA. And if not, if so, how can we exercise that? Physical understanding. Does our veteran understand credit score? When's the last time they had their credit checked? Income stability. Once again, one size does not fit all. So a 22-year-old OEF veteran may have the ability to gain greater income stability than a 70-year-old Vietnam veteran. And that's where our program is so effective. And last but not least, health and welfare. Is that veteran connected to the VA? If they are not, we assess the situation, find out whether or not, and get them connected to the VA, as well as community providers. So our dream, and which is what you guys are allowing me to do here, is to end veteran homelessness, reduce veteran suicide, and transform veteran services everywhere. A number that is out there that we hear a lot, 22 veterans a day commit suicide. There's another number that's attached to that. 16 of those veterans are not connected to any services or any other veteran or any other veteran community. That is our goal, is to connect veterans with veterans and patriots such as your city and yourselves. I would love to talk about the expansion and all the other stuff here, but I definitely would not like to take away from our president, vice president, I apologize, of National Construction. I will take it.
Thank you very much for allowing us the opportunity to speak in front of you guys today. And I think it's important to note that when this organization was founded, when Vincent and all the other co-founders and we started this project, it was never intended to be a large-scale national organization, something that would expand. It was simply a bunch of combat vets coming together, trying to do as much good as we could for the community that we live in. And in that process, the amount of support we started to really rally around the community for us and for our veterans and for the people that we serve was just kind of overwhelming. And after we were able to complete everything that we wanted to as far as programming and the tiny homes and the village we completed in Kansas City, we came to realize that there was a huge need just outside of Kansas City where this organization was founded. And we almost had this sense of an obligation to do as much good as we could for as many people out there struggling as we can help, taking as many of those brothers and sisters off of the streets and really transition them into some type of a permanent housing solution. So in that is really how the National Expansion Team came to be in Veterans Community Project. It just honestly happened organically. So our goal as an organization is to have 8 cities identified and actively working towards providing services by the end of 2022. Currently, we are 100% operational in Kansas City. We have a project going in Longmont, Colorado, and we also have another project going in St. Louis. We are extremely excited about the opportunity here in Sioux Falls. And to be honest with you, I think that it is important to note that just how this has organically happened here in Sioux Falls, we would really like to take this as almost a template of how we would like national expansion to really work. The team that this city has put together and really helped us work with has been outstanding. So With that, if you look at your screen, there's just a quick rendering up here of the proposed site and kind of what we're looking at. It's right off of Willow Drive, and you will notice that there's a community center in the middle of it. That community center is really designed for the wraparound services for the veterans that we serve in the village. We have two different floor plans that we are proposing. You saw the inside of really what we would consider a single family unit. We also house families that are transitioning into a permanent housing solution too. So that's another huge thing that's very important to us is one, to make sure that whatever that family unit is, that we take care of the whole family and not just the veteran themselves. So we're really proposing a project here with 22 individual homes, 8 family units, and then that community center that really will provide the wraparound services for all of the residents themselves. We've had several lessons learned in the process of really creating this organization and building what we built in Kansas City, and now working through the front end of some of these 2 other expansion cities. And we're really taking all of these lessons learned and really applying them into this project here in Sioux Falls. And honestly, we're just thrilled and excited about it. So as you can see, this is just an overhead shot there right off of Willow Avenue of where the site is proposed. And with that, we'd love to open it up for questions. And again, I would just thank you again. So anybody who has any questions, we're ready to get hit with them. So.
Great. And could we just get your name and title just for the record?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Ben Hendershot, and my title is Vice President of National Expansion.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, we'll open up to questions. Councilors.
Yes, sir.
Councilor Selberg and then Councilor Kiley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What a great program. I love the mission statement or the dream, end homelessness and reduce suicides. That's terrific. I guess one of the questions I have, first of all, Ben, great tie. I need that tie. Love it. You talked about lessons learned. Are there a couple that stand out? I'm sure there's many as you go through the process, but I mean, are there a couple of, what are you learning as you go along?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, actually, one of the reasons I brought that up with the family unit is because we have 49 homes in our fully operational village right now, and 4 of those 49 are actually family units. And what we found, and what we didn't account for when we designed that, is there's a lot of individuals, you know, male and female, that may never have had or ever dreamt they could have custody, even partial custody of children. Right, and that's something that's extremely important to our programming, is that unit cohesiveness, that family aspect to it. So what we found is that as they started working this transitional program with their case managers and their individual plan, they would start to actually have custody and visitation rights to their children. So simply finding what that sweet spot of the family units versus single family units, that's a huge lesson learned. Honestly, I could stand up here and talk all day about lessons learned and how we've really transformed as an organization over the last 5 years, but I think that's one good example of it.
Okay, yeah, I didn't want to hear, I'm sure there's, like I say, a number of them.
I definitely think another lesson learned is that the average American wants to do more than say thank you for your service. And this is the power of that. That is definitely a lesson learned. And this community is a testament to that. They want to do more. They want to get out and volunteer, paint a house, talk to, just the ability to talk to a veteran and have their lessons learned. That's huge. And it's really part of the healing of our program.
Absolutely, well said. For family units again, and you probably touched on this, if I missed it, sorry, but how many can live in a family unit again?
So we can actually have up to 5 people sleep in a family unit at one time. With that said, you're not going to want to hang out in there all day, every day with 5 people in it. The family units are a little bit larger. They're right around 340 square feet, and they have a triple bunk on the back wall, and then have a queen-size bed in them.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for your work on this. Thanks for being here today for the presentation. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Councilor Kiley.
Thank you very much. And thank you for your service to our country and for your service to our veterans. drastic need for veterans community projects such as this due to homelessness and suicide. So again, I thank you very much. I already had answers to the family unit. Can you explain the sweat equity? What kind of sweat equity are they expected to invest in their home?
For our veterans that live, that reside in our village during their transitional time, their sweat equity is making their appointments. So each one of those 5 pillars, our veterans are assessed where they're at. So if they are a 60-year-old Vietnam veteran who's never registered in the VA, an individualized plan is developed for him, and their sweat equity is making it to the VA, finally getting into those appointments, getting registered, and that is how they buy into the program. That is the veteran sweat equity. Now, the community sweat equity is where our local partners will have a volunteer day. They can come down and help us out with landscaping. Perfect example is the Kansas City Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes came down and gave some sweat equity by painting a house. So that is the community sweat equity. It goes, hand in hand both ways.
The community center, what would the hours that would be available? And for instance, I guess another question, does that also include a storm shelter in the event of tornadoes or inclement weather?
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely something we take into consideration when we really do the design of these communities. I can tell you that the community centers, we typically have hardened spaces in there that act as storm shelters for the residents of the village. I apologize, I forgot the first question.
Staff hours.
Staff hours, okay. So the community center is really there for the wraparound services for the residents, right? It's not necessarily, don't think of it as a day center or a outreach center or something like that. It is for those residents. So the hours honestly are dictated by a couple of the different things. One, the case management staff and what appointments they have with the residents themselves. Obviously, they have daily office hours. It is also dictated by community partners that we're able to incorporate into the programming. So as Vincent kind of hit on during the presentation, we have a ton of support from the community. So any of those people who have special skill sets or special interests that are able or willing and wanting to donate their time, we absolutely invite them into the community center to help provide those resources through those transitional process. And the last thing I'll hit on is really kind of the sweat equity thing that you're saying. And every veteran, every resident we have has a little bit different case, right? So what we mean by that is our youngest veteran that we've had, that we served to date, is 22 years old. Our oldest veteran that we've served to date is 84. So what that person's 22-year-old kind of case management and programming looks like in sweat equity is much different in every aspect of those 5 pillars from that 84-year-old. So when we say every resident has an individualized case management case, that I think it's just true. It's important to really note that that's truly the case, right? There's no way to take that 22-year-old and that 84-year-old and really combine them into the same type of programming and expect the same type of sweat equity. So it's really done as a veteran, a case-by-case basis. So
if I may, Mr. Chair.
Please.
Will there be, is there Wi-Fi cable services available so that they can make appointments, they can job search, and set up interviews and things of that nature?
So in each of in the Kansas City Village, there is Wi-Fi available. When a veteran moves into the house, whether it is a brand new facility or in a turnover, a positive turnover, everything in that small, tiny home is taken with the veteran that just transitioned. So a veteran walks into that tiny home with everything brand new, to include 2 weeks of food. If the veteran is having some type of food instability, that 2-week time frame allows their case management team to put a plan together to get their income stability up to par to where they're able to provide for themselves. So the digital divide is real. Once again, the 85-year-old veteran is not going to understand necessarily how to use My Healthy Vet, where the 22-year-old veteran is going to navigate it all around us. So all of those amenities are provided, TV, Wi-Fi, and then access to, in the community center, the actual digital, the digital library where they are taught those soft skills on how to utilize the military system. There's so many different systems that are out there, from My Healthy Vet to e-benefits. That's also part of our program, is teaching the veterans the utilization of that.
Think of it as a reset, right? So when we take an individual that is street homeless, living on the streets, or has housing insecurities, and we put them into our program and put them into a tiny home, it is absolutely a reset in their life, right? And in doing so, we want to give them the same things that myself or anybody that I have in my family would be okay with as well. And a lot of these people that we serve, they've been the most successful in their lives during their military experience. So we talked about PTSD and some of the layout of the homes. The other thing these tiny homes do is they really recreate that living scenario that they had in the military. Which a lot of times is the most successful they've been in their life, and then we can transition them properly back into some other type of permanent housing solution. So.
Well, I mean, the great thing about this program is it's not just housing. You're providing housing, which is absolutely one of our basic needs, but you're providing the services to help them be successful members of society again. So that's great. This will serve up to 22 individuals and 8 families. So where is that? Where are we at in the city of Sioux Falls in terms of meeting the needs of our veterans? Is anybody prepared to answer how many homeless?
Yes, indeed. So the location that we were at is, I've learned to say kitty corner up here now, not catty corner, to the Baraka House. And they do an amazing job there at the Baraka House. And we've taken time to visit the Alliance, the Baraka House, the VOA, and see how they operate, who they operate. And as the program progresses, that becomes a perfect transition from, let's say, a veteran is in the Baraka House, come directly to Veterans Community Project, stay in our program for the allotted amount of time that is dictated by their case management team, and then transition on into a permanent housing solution, whatever that may be. Last that I checked via your guys' pit count, I want to say there was 60 in the general area, and I may be incorrect. I think it was 65.
I think when we looked at the need assessment, right, when we really, because we do our own needs assessment and kind of figure out, to be quite honest with you, in other locations, we actually are incorporating outreach centers. And I think I got to give my hats off to the city of Sioux Falls, because when we did that needs assessment, you guys were already providing those services that we provide in our outreach centers, right? So it makes no sense for us to recreate the wheel when we can partner with those people already doing that and strengthen what they're already doing. Where we found really the gap and where we think Veterans Community Project can really fit in and help become a local entity here, VCP Sioux Falls, is in that transitional housing. Even your shelters are awesome. We took the time and really toured a few shelters here in town, and you guys do a great job with really some of the street homeless in the shelters and the different programs you have here. The biggest need and gap that we personally found was that transitional housing piece and that transitional family housing, which is why this is what we're proposing here to really benefit the city. So hopefully that answers your question.
Please.
One last question. Is there a next phase? What's next?
Is there a next phase as far as for VCP or for VCP Sioux Falls or what?
This project.
For this project.
And expanding upon this with another location?
So as far as VCP goes, I mean, to be quite candid with you, our mission is to end veterans homelessness, right? So our mission is really to create local entities, right? I don't want anybody to think of this as a large national, organization coming in and trying to take over. We want to create a local entity in as many municipalities as we can across the country to help as many veterans on the streets as we possibly can. As far as Sioux Falls goes and the next steps there, it's constantly a reassessment of what the need is in the area, right? Is there a transportation gap that maybe can be filled somehow? Is there another gap that can be filled? So I don't think the work is ever completely done, and so the next step would constantly be that reassessment.
And to kind of answer that, the next step for VCP as well as VCP Sioux Falls, and this is also part of our program that we do not, it's kind of an unsaid, it's an unsaid pillar, is to reignite that warrior spirit. I know that there are several veterans here in this room that have that same call, that same feeling of service, not just to their country, but to their community, as well as their brothers and sisters. So our goal is just to take our passion, bring it to any city, 8 cities by the end of 2022, and to continue on this project because we are at a phase in this country's history that we're going to continue to have veterans with these same exact issues. So my service is not over. There are gentlemen in this room here who I know whose service is not over, and that's what brings us here today.
Thank you very much. It is very honorable that you're trying to work yourselves out of a job. That's the intent. Yeah. That should be the intent in this. And let me also say, you guys make a great tag team. I'm sitting here watching you tap each other on the back, and okay, my turn in the ring. So good job.
Hey, thank you for the compliment on his tie. I was, it's amazing tie. He's a Marine, just FYI.
Councillor Jensen.
Thank you, Chair. Maybe just a couple of questions. So you have 22 individual homes and 8 family homes. It's outstanding. It's great. And I look at the lot. If you could you go back one slide? I think there's a great picture of it. This does the project a lot of justice, I think, rather than the picture that I've seen today, because the sidewalks are a little closer together, a little smaller. There's, more compactness. How do you guys arrive at the 22 houses and then the 8 family houses? Did you guys work with a local contractor to say, hey, these are the zoning requirements? I counted up the parking spots. There's about 66 parking spots for these units. So how do you design this?
So this is, it definitely is that team spirit. I didn't mention if I did or didn't. I'm an Army veteran. Ben is a Marine veteran. I work on the Veteran Supportive Services side of the house. Ben works on the construction side of the house. The way we came to that number was to take your guys' continuum of care pit count numbers and the surrounding 5 counties and then adjust for a 10% growth. We know that building this project will bring homelessness in nature is transient, will bring homeless veterans to this area. So that is how we kind of came to that number. Now, when it's also about fitting the rest of it in, that is where myself and Ben will sit down and have a conversation, and he gets to, where I'm like, I think we need 50 houses here. Well, this is not going to work via, zoning laws and construction, so on and so forth. So that's really the tag team of what we're able to accomplish. That's how we came to that number. And as we said, as Ben said earlier, just amazing. The city itself is amazing at keeping veterans, individuals alive, but actually making that life-changing transition is something that every city struggles with. And we think for the niche, the community that we serve, we've definitely found that key.
The other important thing I think to note on that is we absolutely look at the pit counts and the COCs and whatnot in the surrounding areas when we come to these determinations. But it is a little bit of a guessing game because we also have to take into account that our organization serves not only VA eligible, but non-VA eligible veterans. So sometimes they'll pit counts and other times homeless population in general necessarily won't identify as a veteran if they're not VA eligible because they don't think they need to. So that's part of the game that really helps us come to the determination of how large or small we need these. The city, like Vincent said, has been great, but VCP would not want to build a property if it wasn't for the intended purpose and the need of the area. So, yep.
So maybe to follow up on that, is 22 houses for individuals and 8 family homes, is that enough?
Time will tell. But from what we've seen thus far, yes. We have had plenty of time here on ground working with the local VA, speaking to individuals at the Braga House. Once again, Volunteers of America, Paul has been really amazing over there, giving us a picture of what that looks like. Veterans Community Project defines veteran as anybody that raised their right hand. So it does not matter what is on your DD-214, your discharge paperwork, as long as you have one. So off the numbers that we've seen and the accounted growth, yes, we do think that is more than enough. That is around the surrounding counties, that would be more than enough.
Okay. Director Eckhoff?
in the box. Just for reference, the land to the right, which is actually the south of the site, that's a bare lot the city owns as well. That's a concept for some multifamily housing, but it could host an expansion of this if that's need is still warranted. And then just another note too, I forgot it was in my presentation that tomorrow there'll be in Planning Commission for the rezoning of that property into an S1 classification for institutional because of the community center, and that allows the closeness and the setbacks and the sidewalks and things that you were alluding to. And then that rezone will come back to council for first reading April 20th, second reading May 4th. Once the land is transferred, then we'll go into development agreements, and those things will come through council and due process as well. So that's the path for council.
Director, one more question on the so the new zoning allows for setbacks and zoning requirements to be reduced, so there's more density in these areas? Is that true?
I'm not going to get over my head because Jason's here, but it's an institutional zoning, and he might want to be the one that explains that rather than myself, because I'll just get in trouble.
Jason Bieber with Planning and Development Services. So we would, excuse me, really be rezoning this to S1 institutional to kind of call it kind of a group home transitional housing complex. So specifically, one of the issues with tiny homes when people are trying to build those is to get the lot frontage and things like that. When we go into that S1 institutional district, they're not going to be sold, so we don't really need all those lot frontages. We have had building services look at these, make sure that they're separated far enough, but it really gives us more flexibility and not having to have all of these our individual homes platted off to be able to sell them to individuals. So it gives us that more flexibility than a traditional apartment, townhome, single family kind of district. So
Follow up.
Go ahead.
With the parking, is that a requirement of the city to have that much parking, or is that something that VCP would like?
I'd probably get it back over to Vincent over there. I think he can give you a little bit of another lesson learned with that parking aspect. Just from a city perspective, we would do it on the number of beds. So it'd be a one parking space for every 8 beds. So you think we'd require 4 parking spaces, but they can tell you the method on why there is so many parking spaces there.
So this is another lesson learned. When working with the homeless population, they have a lot more possessions than you would think, to include vehicles, which they may be living out of 1 or 2 and or 3 vehicles. One of those may be tagged in their name, one of them may be owed to them by a friend, but those are their possessions. So when they come into our program, they're going to bring their possessions with them. That is a lesson learned from Kansas City. Now, there are policies and procedures set in place, so when the veterans come into the program, they are completely legal, and they are operating within the legalities of being able to drive, but that's part of our program. So it's taking that and lesson learned. Parking is key.
Well, thanks for your work, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having us.
Do we have any questions on the phones?
Councilmember Neisert?
Councilor Brecky, please.
One question, yeah. Has anybody been discussing this, the potential that this program has to be modeled for other groups or other populations that can be identified as having a need? Has there been any discussion about that? Just the way you've set it up, with the community center and the tiny homes, obviously there's other populations that are identifiable as to that tend to become more homeless than others. And so I'm just wondering if there's been any discussion about that, because it seems to me like it might have that potential.
There has been conversation back home in Kansas City with our continuum of cares, the Greater Kansas City Coalition and Homelessness, about this model. Anything further than a conversation has not taken place yet. We're in our 5th year of operation, so starting to get that data and proving that the model works. We're getting to that point, but agreed 100% this can work for veterans. A lot of other demographics it can work for as well.
I think it's really important to also really important also to mention on that this organization, the founding of it was just a group of combat veterans that was trying to help their local community, right? So me personally, I would love nothing more than to see something like this used in other avenues. But Veterans Community Project is absolutely focused on veterans, and that really stems from how the organization was founded. So,
yeah. Councilor Sale, any questions?
No.
Was that a no? Okay. All right. Very good. Anything from you, Councilor Starr? Good. Okay. Well, then that leads me to a few questions. When you say VA eligible, do you have to have an honorable discharge to be VA eligible? Is that what's the distinction, or?
So at this current time, and I may not be quoting regulation, but it is 24 months of consecutive service after September 1980. That then, with an honorable discharge, that then changes via reservist and or National Guardsman. So I can give you a personal story. I was a combat engineer while I was in service. The IEDs that have taken so many of our soldiers' lives, that was my job to find them and disarm them. My second tour, a soldier of mine found one the hard way. Our job's really simple. It finds you or you find it. And he then started to develop some issues. We rotated back home. We were stationed in Germany. He then decided to go to Amsterdam and have a good time and have a great weekend. Of course, we know that in the military you come back, and he had a positive urine analysis for banned substances. At that point in time, he was then sent to Mannheim, spent some time in military disciplinary barracks, and then discharged from service with an other than honorable. Enlisted to serve his country, 3 years, 1 tour, was hurt downrange, made a bad decision, paid for that decision, was discharged from the military, and about 4 years ago, he called me up in the middle of the night. Sergeant Morales, I don't know what to do. They erased me. I have all these problems. I don't know what to do. I got you. We'll get you squared away. That is where we're taking individuals and helping them through that transition process. So a veteran can come into our program with an other than honorable discharge, and depending on their situation, if it's that same narrative, work on getting that discharge upgraded in order for them to receive services from the VA, full services. That is where we define veteran a little bit differently in that manner. Now for National Guardsmen and reservists, it is a little bit different, but we also, that educational piece is key. A lot of veterans do not know that they have, as long as they have an honorable discharge, 5 years of health care, walk into the VA automatically 5 years after health care, 5 years after discharge. That's for guardsmen and reservists. A lot of individuals do not know that. So that connecting the veteran to the community and the community to the veteran, that is something that we do on a daily basis, just with communication and or knowledge. The VA does an amazing job. I hear you guys here have an amazing VA. That is our goal, is to break down that stigma of, well, as there's something wrong with you if you go to the VA. I use the VA here all the time. Well, not here, but Kansas City.
Sure.
So you've also got to remember too, because of the way that we're set up, we've actually had people that are still active in the military, not necessarily on active duty, but are active in the Guard or the Reserve as residents, right? And it's kind of mind-boggling to think that somebody would be street homeless and still being currently serving their country. So our definition of a veteran, it is broader than a lot of other organizations, and a lot of that comes from just, there again, how we were founded and kind of what our mission statement is.
Very good. I was surprised too. I kind of looked at the parking, but you've answered that question. I just wanted to make sure there wasn't a zoning requirement. You weren't overbuilding, but you need it. Okay. My next question is, how are you primarily, how do you generate operational funding to keep this going?
I apologize, I'm sorry. What was that again?
How do you generate the operational funding to keep this going? You know, because obviously you've got to keep people on staff and you've got operational costs. I mean, how do you make this work?
So we have the, well, I could say here in Sioux Falls and especially in Kansas City, the philanthropic community has really been behind us in our definition of veteran. We also, when it comes to grants or CARES Act dollars, anything that does not restrict us from serving veterans in the way that we see fit, that is the year-over-year cost. I can say that, you know, thus far, the visits that we've had here, we've had a lot of positive feedback from local champions, from the philanthropic community, understanding what we're saying and seeing those needs. So as Ben just spoke about, there's literally a National Guardsman who we've housed that is homeless. How do you go through with that? How do you say this gentleman, this warrior volunteered to serve their country and now they're on the street? So it's us getting out there, initially us, the expansion team, starting off conversations, but then identifying our local champions to continue on that year-over-year funding.
We'll absolutely have a local development team here that would, you know, be VCP Sioux Falls. A lot of our funding comes from corporations, individuals, and foundations, and it's kind of a hodgepodge to put it together to meet our operational requirements for our different sites. And I think it's important to note, when I mentioned some of the other sites we're working on, currently in Longmont, we have staff in Longmont. We have a case management staff out there that's currently helping vets, right? So it is something that we have an operational cost for, but it's something that honestly we really believe can be done, and something that isn't going to scare us away from doing this. So, yeah.
Okay. And so how long do you have a rule or a goal in terms of how long a veteran will live before they transition out?
So we have modeled our time frame tentative around what the grant per diem, or what our grant per diem programs operate on. That's around 24 months. But the data is showing and reflecting, since we have been in operation, about 16 to 18 months is that sweet spot where we can remedy whatever got the veterans into that situation and move them on. Now, there is a, having the flexibility, being privately funded. If a veteran, and this is a prime example, of a veteran, one of our original 13, was working with Habitat for Humanity. And we have a partnership with them in Kansas City, and they had built her a home. And at month number 23, COVID hit. So we weren't going to say, and that delayed her into her permanent housing solution by 6 months. So we weren't going to say at month number 24, I know that, hey, this is working out for you, but these next 6 months, you kind of got to figure it out. That's where we have that flexibility to say we're going to continue to work. As long as the veteran is moving forward, there are not many hurdles that we haven't been able to navigate yet. But 24 months around is the kind of no later than date, but we have an amazing program that is customized to each individual. 16 to 18 months is the sweet spot to where veterans are transitioning out.
Great. And then my last question is, we have, as you alluded to, kind of, for lack of a better term, sort of a one-stop shop in the military alliance with a lot of services under one roof. Has there been cooperation? Is that going to be a good resource for you?
Here in Sioux Falls?
Yes.
Oh, yes, amazing. I mean, I just, hats off to you guys as a community. The alliance, that building, that community, that is amazing. And I apologize, but Light Colonel, who's the gentleman has been my point of contact over there, it's just been amazing with helping me out and kind of putting the game plan together. So that is, hopefully our goal would be to have services out of that building.
Great.
I mean, who wouldn't want to be in that building to begin with?
Yep. Great. All right. Yeah, no, exactly. It's awesome. Well, I think on behalf of all of us, thank you for your service, both of you, and your sacrifice and what you continue to do for your brothers and sisters in arms and for our country.
Thank you for your support. Each and every one of you, thank you for having us out here. And just it's been a blessing. As Ben said, just a bunch of combat veterans coming together, and now here we are taking care of other veterans. So thank you guys for your support. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for being here. That brings us to public comment. Anyone who would like to comment on anything we talked about today for up to 5 minutes, please come forward. Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned.